If Democrats cared about ending crime, they would punish criminals, not target law-abiding gun owners. You know, I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment. I've always owned a gun since I can remember. Since I was probably 16 years old, I had a gun. Always was responsible with it. Trained in it. I was in the military. So I'm a firm. I had my concealed weapons license when I was in Virginia, but now that I'm in the free state of Texas, I don't need one. But I'm a firm believer in self-defense and protecting yourself and your family. But instead of trampling on the Second Amendment, Democrats like Biden should toughen up on the offenders who use guns to facilitate illicit activity. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out. Also, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I put out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree that's in the description. It has a link to my Patreon where I can talk about things that I can't talk about here. Also, have a link to my merch store where I have Let's Go Brandon t-shirts, I Will Not Comply t-shirts. I got a few ideas for some Second Amendment t-shirts, so be looking out for that also. And I also have a link to my mental health coaching and consultation page where you can book a session with me to talk about whatever mental health issues you might be going through. I could teach you coping skills and all types of ways to deal with those issues. So all right, let's get started with this news. President Joe Biden told Americans on Monday that regulating firearms is the best way to combat rising violent crime in U.S. cities. But taking away the gun rights of law abiding Americans doesn't rein in criminals, especially those let off the hook by soft on crime progressives. And there's been tons of studies that talked about when the Brady Bill came out in the 90s and how that didn't help, that didn't stop anything from happening and all that other stuff. I can get into statistics and stuff, but I'm not really going to talk about that right now. But violent crime um, often perpetrated using firearms is on the rise in many American cities. In 2021 alone, at least 14 Democrat-controlled urban hubs reported all-time high crime homicide records. That's crazy. Even though this historic crime streak is even plaguing cities with strict gun laws, the Biden administration wants gun parts, such as frames and receivers, to be serialized and regulated as regular firearms so they can be traced. This will require customers who purchase gun kits from retailers to undergo a background check like they would if they were buying an already assembled firearm. It's just stupid. It's just more bureaucracy. All of a sudden, it's no longer a ghost. It has a return address. It's going to help save lives, reduce crime, and get more criminals off the streets, Biden said. Nobody believes this except these crazy gun nuts. But, excuse me. But what Biden failed to mention in his lie-riddled gun control speech is that build your own guns make up a remarkably small portion of firearms used to commit crimes in America. To put in perspective, New York City police seized more than 6,000 illegal guns in 2021. Only 200 of them did not have serial numbers. A small percentage. New polling suggests that 61% of voters are not pleased with Biden's handling of crime. So now the White House is clearly trying to take action to combat this negative perception with random rules ostensibly to curb gun violence. Excuse me, my allergies are kicking my butt today. I apologize. But chances are, however, any rules regulating so-called ghost guns won't have an effect on crime that Biden claims they would. It wouldn't do anything. He's just going through the motions, doing this stuff so he can pretend that he's doing something about crime instead of really doing something about it, which is making sure the laws on the books are being followed and these liberal progressive judges and liberal progressive prosecutors that make sure they do their freaking job. Instead of doing that, he want to pretend like he's making a difference, which this is not. Media outlets often frame the increase in guns without serial numbers as a big problem for crime-plagued cities, but the fact is that a large percentage of these criminals obtain their guns illegally. I mean, it's the statistics are out there, so they're just ignoring them though. A 2019 Department of Justice survey of imprisoned criminals found that at least 43% of the offenders obtained their firearm via the black market. Only 10% made a purchase from a federally licensed firearm store, which is where Biden's new rules will be enforced. In other words, Biden's new gun rules won't change the crime rate because his policies target purchasers who buy from gun retailers, not the black market. I mean, so it's really going to do nothing. Instead of trampling on the Second Amendment to supposedly combat rising crime, Biden should encourage members of his party and progressive judicial activists to toughen up on the offenders who use guns to facilitate illicit activity. Earlier this year, California's Soft on Crime Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation released from prison Smiley Allen Martin, one of the gunmen accused of going on a shooting spree in downtown Sacramento last week. Martin was arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison in 2018 for domestic violence and assault. If not for his early release under the state's prison capacity reduction plan, Martin would still be locked up. Prosecuting and locking up offenders is pivotal in combating crime, but it's not something Biden or Democrats are focused on promoting. In fact, for most of the last month, the White House has actively defended progressive criminal reform policies, and people such as Biden Supreme Court pick Ketanji Brown Jackson, who are guilty of using them to let dangerous offenders off the hook. You know, I talked about her to ad nauseum, so you can check out all the videos and the evidence that I put forth about Ketanji Brown Jackson. But taking away the gun rights of law-abiding Americans doesn't stop dangerous criminals from obtaining firearms and committing crimes. I mean, we've seen the numerous studies that speak to this. Instead of trying to legislate crime off the streets, Biden and the Democrats should focus on prosecuting and punishing offenders to the full extent of the law. But let me know what you think about all this. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and check out democrepublics.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.